What if that is the question? What if Great Britain didn't colonize India? What if Great Britain didn't colonize parts of Australia? What if Great Britain didn't colonize the Americas? How different would the world be? What futures are possible? With each of these cases, outside interference, no matter the intention, alters the native area's future and thus creates an unrealized alternate destiny. At the height of its power, Great Britain controlled over 24% of Earth's landmass, from Australia to parts of Africa to the Americas. The sun never set on the British Empire. To get to this point, they went from place to place, asserting their rule over the native people to gain some sort of advantage. In India, they set up a British Raj with the sole goal of exploiting India's raw materials and to get new buyers for goods from Britain. They brought new weapons, new animals, a new language, and new germs to these places, but their most effective agent of change was their culture. The reason why culture has the longest lasting impact is because it's nearly impossible to destroy. You can tear down statues, monuments, systems, anything. But all of these things add up to what the predominant culture is. For example, how do native Indians speak English? Once the Brits took down the previous government, the Mughal dynasty, and created the British Raj, aka the Crown Rule of India, they were able to implement British legislative practices into Indian culture. With the advent of this government, the Indian National Congress was created, and with it, the main language to be used was English, causing a comprehensive switch and advantage to those who spoke English, which was mainly British people or upper-class Indians. Through this, it proliferated class distinctions and thus inequalities in Indian society, once again changing India's future and creating a what-if scenario, all because of a change in language. In nearly every case, it is easier to build off of something rather than create something new. Through colonization, it provides a template for the quote-unquote lesser society to copy, a societal blueprint. This is why colonies nowadays look so similar to their colonizers' society. An example of this is in the United States. The U.S. built many different institutions and ideas off of Britain's societal blueprint. In the U.S., the overall structure of the court system is based largely off of Britain's model, starting with smaller appellate courts, to regional courts, to state courts, and then an overarching Supreme Court. And although these have many differences, the broad similarities between the two are still there. Another example is the link between taxation and representation. And yes, I'm aware of the irony in this, but in actuality, the U.S. got this idea from the British. As Darwin L. King writes in his essay, A Brief History of Taxation of the American Colonies Prior to the Revolutionary War, the notion of taxation and representation is a British idea that the United States copied. Lastly, the most crucial idea that the U.S. copied from the British is just merely speaking English. It may seem obvious, but this is the main medium in which we transfer thoughts and ideas to one another. The English language is from being ruled by Britain at one point. As much as Americans attempt to distance themselves from being British, they are merely a derivative of British society. Brits and Americans are by no means identical, but these similarities, and many more, link the two nations together just like every other colonizer and colonizee, and create even more what-if scenarios. Now, for the big question, why does this matter? Patrick Wolfe, the Australian historian, writes in an essay, Settler Colonialism and the Elimination of the Native, that the process of colonization allowed these people and cultures to be better equipped to join the world. And yes, I agree with this. These places are far better equipped to enter the world order and begin to make that lovely green paper called U.S. currency. But did it actually help? Are these places happier? Are they living a better life? Would they have been better off without any interference? Countries around the world focus on the US as the gold standard for what everyone should aspire to because it is so wealthy. The question is, should they? Are Americans substantially happier than the rest of the world? Studies indicate that although the US is the wealthiest nation on earth, people aren't necessarily any happier than anyone else. On the Gallup World Poll of Happiness, the US is ranked number 19. So why is the US what everyone thinks they should aspire to? Because they see big cars, big houses, pretty women, and yachts? Is that what actually makes people happy? Or are those mirages in which people hide their true sadness behind? People spend years and years making themselves brutally unhappy just to get more of this arbitrary green paper, and for what? To buy a nicer car? How long does that happiness last? In our world, people are constantly pushed to do things just in order to obtain more wealth. In India, for example, the education system, cultural attitude, and outside influence all push people to learn English and then go to a good school, go to the US or Europe, become an engineer or doctor, and then become wealthy. What does this do? Does this path make everyone happy? Does this allow for people to legitimately pursue what they want and what they are best at? No, because not everyone vies to be a doctor or an engineer or a scientist. The world needs artists and authors and poets and historians and warriors and farmers and builders and engineers and doctors. Life is not about one path. It's about finding your own path and adding something to the world. The true bane in colonialism lies in the fact that it alters what need not be altered. These colonized nations were on a trajectory that will never be realized because of influence from a foreign entity. It is the butterfly effect in action. One seemingly small change equals massive changes in the overall outcome. It makes you wonder what could have been. What unrealized destiny could have played out? All of these things can be traced back to colonialism. These alterations are due to Great Britain or Spain or France or Portugal meddling with other nations. How different would the world be if India was left alone, or if the Native Americans were left alone, or if Africa was left alone? We will never know because of colonialization.